Hi, I'm Christy McDonald, and here's what's coming up on One Detroit. The U.S. Senate race in Michigan. Gary Peters and John James get questions from One Detroit contributors Nolan Finley and Stephen Henderson. Plus, the beauty of art in prison, a University of Michigan program going 25 years strong. And then, Detroit Jazz City, the history of jazz here and the impact felt today. It's all coming up right now on One Detroit.
From Delta Faucets to Behr Paint, Masco Corporation is proud to deliver products that enhance the way consumers all over the world experience and enjoy their living spaces. Masco, serving Michigan communities since 1929.
Support for this program provided by the Cynthia and Etzel Ford Fund for Journalism at Detroit Public TV.
The Kresge Foundation, Community Foundation for Southeast Michigan.
The DTE Foundation is a proud sponsor of Detroit Public TV, among the state's largest foundations committed to Michigan-focused giving. We support organizations that are doing exceptional work in our state. Visit dtefoundation.com to learn more.
Business Leaders for Michigan, dedicated to making Michigan a top 10 state for jobs, personal income, and a healthy economy. Nissan Foundation, Ally, and viewers like you.
Hey, One Detroit, I'm Christy McDonald. Thanks so much for joining me. Hope you're having a great week. Politics are taking center stage in Michigan this week as we expand our election 2020 coverage. Nolan Finley of the Detroit News and Stephen Henderson of American Black Journal talked with both Senate candidates John James and Senator Gary Peters this week in town hall conversations put on by the Detroit Regional Chamber. They'll have that for us. Plus, a closer look at art in Michigan's prisons, a program at the University of Michigan helping to inspire men and women who are incarcerated. And then the impact of Detroit's jazz legacy on musicians today. It is all ahead on One Detroit. But first we get to the politics and the conversations Nolan and Stephen had with John James and Gary Peters and their analysis of the Senate race.
I have a history of working together and getting legislation passed in a bipartisan way. And in fact, if you just look at the last 2 years, I have written and passed more legislation through the United States Senate than any other U.S. senator, either Democratic or Republican. That's the kind of thing we need to do to bring folks together. And we were very close to doing something with Dreamers and dealing with border protection. And yet it ended because the president abruptly and without real clear explanation said no. So we have to do it. And hopefully after this election, we'll have an opportunity to deal with a critical issue.
The fact that this nation is the greatest nation in the world, but we can't forget that, I mean, to use Pharrell's terms, stolen lands built with swollen hands. I think that the way we fix this, the way we address this, the way we bring unity is not to tear down our past, but look at working how we build our future. If you look at a scale of 1 to 100, with 100 being close to civil war, and you two are familiar, we're almost 3/4 of the way there. I think that having leadership who is used to bringing nonpartisan solutions, both in the military and in business, being raised by two Democrats from the Jim Crow South to be an independent thinker, not owned by any party or process, I think that that's the best way to go.
Well, Steve, I think we've got a race here. This is, I think, going to go right down to the wire. Our poll last week, Detroit News Channel 4 poll, had it at 3 points. My position is any poll that has a Republican within 3 points is probably a dead heat, since so many people are reluctant to tell pollsters they're voting for a Republican. You know, I think we got two strong candidates going at it here.
Yeah, I think John James is a better candidate than he was 2 years ago. There's no question about that. I think his struggle will be to, again, define his positions a little sharper. I was disappointed in his answer to a couple of the questions that we asked. The healthcare question is a great example. He talked about tort reform. He talked about market-based reforms as a solution to pre-existing conditions, which he couldn't explain, and he didn't do a good job of drilling down on, okay, what would you actually do to make sure that pre-existing conditions were covered? Then he said, well, I'd keep that part of the Affordable Care Act. Well, that's a little different than what he's saying in his commercials. He's a really good example of someone who's hitting a lot of really strong ideological points for his side of the aisle, but somebody who probably has not given enough of the thought that you need to being a legislator who can develop policy in those areas to make change. And that's a really common problem among people who run for public office the first time running for Senate, because it's a pretty steep climb. He is a better candidate this time, but he's still showing a lot of the weaknesses he had 2 years ago.
But, on the other side of the coin, you've got Gary Peters touting his bipartisanship, but when the chips are on the table, he votes with Chuck Schumer. We saw that with the COVID-19 vote. It obviously wasn't the package Democrats wanted, but it was a package at a time when the economy still needs a jolt and people still need some relief. He voted against that, and he's got to explain the nuances of that vote. But
he can.
Candidates have things they're going to have to explain and defend here. But I think what we're looking at is two very strong candidates.
Well, I think he can explain that by saying it's an awful package, and the House, which is controlled by Democrats, passed a package that Democrats in the Senate would be all for.
Of course they would, because it's a package we can't afford. You can't, in good conscience, pass a package that large, that broad, and that takes in so many other things other than the COVID relief and economic stimulus. This is a time with the economy recovering to be judicious and to think about how much money we're spending. Obviously, these two candidates differed on some other things as well in their discussion with us during the MPC event on Wednesday. Defense, I thought, was a clear definer between the two. One, the senator is on the Armed Forces Committee. John James has actually fought in a war. Both of them saw opportunity for Michigan, though, in the defense budget.
Yeah, they did. They saw economic opportunity for Michigan in the defense budget, which I think is absolutely there. I was also surprised by the enthusiasm that John James showed for immigration reform. Again, not a lot of specifics about how he would get there, but that sets him apart from certainly the Trump Republicans, who don't care about the value of immigration to the economy. They just
it was a business Republican point of view. I think it's a very common point of view from Republicans who come from the business world, and that's where he comes from. I hope we get a chance to sit down with these two face to face.
It'd be great
in the week.
Yeah, and I agree with you that it could go right down to the wire, but we'll see.
For the entire town hall put on by the Detroit Regional Chamber, just head to our website at onedetroitpbs.org. We'll have a link for you there. All right, while Michigan's prison population has been decreasing, the number of artists behind those walls are higher than ever. A program at the University of Michigan curating art created by the incarcerated has reached its 25th anniversary. One Detroit senior producer Bill Kubota has more about prison art and one prolific artist who some believe the time is now for his release.
Welcome if you're just joining us. We are at the famous Heidelberg Project, the entire block of Heidelberg Street in the city of Detroit, one of the more famous landmarks here.
Retired TV reporter Bill Proctor's mission? Freeing innocent people behind bars. He's hosting an online fundraiser for a man locked away in Muskegon.
It's the art community in the entire city of Detroit stepping up for a cause today, and that cause is a fellow named Ray Gray. He is a wrongfully convicted man who has been in the Michigan prison system since 1973. We're selling our friend Ray Gray's artworks. We actually have 50 of them. We're working really hard to find $15,000.
The money to cover legal costs for a new hearing. Supporters of Ray Gray, now 68, say they've got evidence that would clear him of a murder 47 years ago.
Obviously, some of Ray's work is still with him in prison, but his wife is lucky enough to have 70, maybe 80 pieces And we've chosen a few, and we're making them available.
What's this one now?
Blue Madonna. There's the original. A man looking inside himself. The doors represent decisions. Open one door and you go a certain way, open another, you go another way.
And I think he's a really good example of how people can actually teach themselves incredible skills.
At the University of Michigan, Nora Kranitsky and Janie Paul are part of the Prison Creative Arts Project, PCAP. Paul was there from the start 25 years ago. For a while, we were having a record number of prisoners in general, but that number has gone down. But have you seen the number of artists go down?
No.
Oh, no.
No. It's just exponentially increasing because of the show.
Mm-hmm.
The show? Every year, PCAP curates the best art from 28 Michigan prisons. Thousands come to see. 700 works submitted this time, but this time COVID has stopped the show.
In the beginning, there was more work that was what you traditionally call prison art, like tattoo-related images, girly pictures, motorcycles, things like that. And then there were a few artists who were doing incredibly unique work that was just idiosyncratic.
Here are examples from this year's exhibition in an online preview. Not what some collectors are looking for, so-called murderabilia, ghoulish stuff by the most heinous of criminals. Those are not these, and these, according to the curators in Ann Arbor, are truly fine art. Do these works get sold? Is there a market for it?
Absolutely. So that's another really important part of the annual exhibition. At the artist prerogative, all of the artwork is for sale, and the proceeds of every sale go back directly to the artists themselves. I think that last year, the cumulatively PCAP sold over $25,000 worth of art. I think the total was closer to $27,000.
This is the one I was telling you about.
Moving them around makes me
Nervous?
I think if the DIA curators saw what you're doing here, they wouldn't feel too good.
Oh.
Barbara Gray first met Ray Gray in the late 70s, part of an arts in prison program even before PCAP came along.
I had very little talent, but I did have the ability to teach somewhat.
They eventually married.
Hello, Ray.
They talk every day.
You're still negative?
Yeah, I got a thing back today. It was negative.
Fortunately, we don't have capital punishment in Michigan, because he'd be dead. But right now, he's in Muskegon Correctional Facility that it's almost like a death sentence because it's a hot spot of the prison system. It seems like more people with COVID-19 than without.
Gray entered prison at 21, a boxing champ, could have gone pro. When a man he met in passing said to be a drug dealer was shot dead, Gray was ID'd, charged, and convicted. To this day, Gray says he's innocent. So you were painting before you went to prison?
Yeah. I was intending to go to high school at that time. But I've been involved in art since I was about 5 years old.
Really?
Yeah, my father was an artist, and my mother.
Does art help you as you go about your day? Do you do a lot of it on a given day?
Yes, it's sort of my religion. It helps. It helps greatly. I guess you can call it a form of escapism, but I don't look at it in that manner. You know, sometimes I paint things that I don't even fully understand myself. I mean, it's almost like a different entity or something. It's as if something else takes over. It's like a relationship between you and your painting.
It helps to keep him sane. At one point he said it was like he was behind glass and he was screaming and nobody could hear him. Now it seems like he's getting through, and his paintings kind of speak for him even when he can't.
Well, Ray's been in the show for a long time. He is highly respected. He's taught a lot of people. His work is really skillful. And I think what makes it exceptional is his sort of incisive critique, like his social critique. There's a painting of Governor Snyder in a bottle that's about the Flint water crisis. There's this fish with a gas mask on. You know, I mean, he's really kind of brilliant at these metaphors where you don't really have to say anything. You just get it, and you feel his conviction behind it.
Many of his pieces aren't just portraits, they tell a story. And I think that's another thing that makes him different.
What about the Ray Gray story? Will that change? His supporters want to bring evidence never presented showing he couldn't have done the killing. They say they know who really did, although that man has died. How are things going in terms of you getting out of prison?
Well, I talked to my attorney yesterday, and there's some real positive things just beginning to happen. There's some things that are being re-looked at.
In the meantime, more paintings wait to be sold for the Free Ray Gray Legal Fund. So far, they've raised about $2,500 of the $15,000 goal.
He honed his talent over many years on the inside. I can only imagine how wonderful his work would be had he had a chance to attend that art school and to flourish on the outside as a free man.
And finally, Detroit Jazz City. The new documentary about the history of jazz premieres Friday, September 18th, right here on Detroit Public Television. One Detroit associate producer, Will Glover, talked with Tarek Gardner, who is the son of jazz great Marion Hayden. They look at the legacy of the music today and how it inspires musicians.
What makes Detroit's jazz community different from any other communities that you've experienced?
In this place, you have a chance to learn from many generations. People are very forthcoming with giving information because, the old heads and the veterans in the community, they really want to see our music thrive. They really want to see jazz go on and reach farther heights to the next generation. And they really want to see the music progress and see how it takes shape over time too. So there are so many people that are very open to hearing what people in my generation and my contemporaries have to add to the tradition.
It's not just music that's passed on, it's other, cultural traditions within the jazz community that, are passed down from generation to generation. So what are some of the lessons or, stories like that you've come away with so far?
I've come away with a multitude, and I'm very grateful for them, the fact of being a person of your word and how your word is your bond, right? Because being a musician and a performer, all you have is your word. If you don't show up, then the gig can't happen, or you're going to put somebody in a bad spot to have to find somebody else. So if you say you're going to be someplace, you're going to do something at a certain time, you're going to be at that place on that day at that time. And you don't want to, upend somebody's trust. If you tell somebody that you're going to learn some of their music, you go on and learn it. If you tell someone you're going to send them some music, you're going to learn it. So it's just, kind of that process of diligence. And I've gotten that from both my mother especially, and from many of my mentors on the scene.
You've been on a drum line during the Detroit Will Breathe protests. So what prompted you to participate in that and go out there and do that?
The drums is within that context, it's a very unique situation as a drummer because, we're really kind of helping everybody stay on their feet, stay on the mission, continue with the chant leaders, because there's actually been a few movements that I've heard of that have kind of fizzled a little bit, without there being a rhythmic element that is helping to carry the bus forward. And I'm very grateful for the other drummers that I've met in this process because there's so many other people that are out there that have some of the same whys and some different whys than me, and we're all out there for the same reason. People I've never met before. And, I just feel like it's really something that's that can be a part of history.
What is the most important thing to you about jazz?
That's a loaded question, my man. I'll tell you what. But I'll say that the most important thing to me is I call it action in the affirmative. The spirit of yes. The spirit of yeah, let's do this. The spirit of, well, this is a new thing to me, but I'm gonna learn it right now, and we're gonna do it, and we're gonna figure it out, and we're gonna make things happen. You know, we're gonna make people jubilate, and we're gonna bring not only art to the people, but we're gonna bring them some spontaneous good energy that they need, whether it's live or in the studio. So to me, jazz is about yeah.
Jazz is kind of like a small community, you know, subculture type thing. Everybody knows the progress of in the development of the young folks. We always this particular genre always kept up with young people because the energy always comes from young people and the ideas, although the knowledge is from the older folks.
There's rigor in the community education school here. The rigor is that there's expectations that you will learn the music, that you will execute.
And you don't realize it till you go other places, how blessed it is to be working in Detroit. The level of musicianship is just strong here in Detroit. I mean, not only the level of musicianship, but the knowledge of the songs. I mean, you can call a song and everybody knows it, you know, and knows the right changes.
There's traditions that are very African-centered, like respecting your elders. And I think those things to me are really are very precious, and they're the things that really make the community what it is.
You know, Barry's lessons also went beyond music. Charles McPherson, alto saxophone player, tells a story about when Charles was 15, 16 years old, had begun going over to Barry's house to study. One day Barry saw that he had his report card, and Barry said, "Charles, I see you have your report card, can I see that?" And Charles says, "Yeah, sure." So he gives it to him, and Barry looks at the report card, kind of furrows his brow, and he looks up at Charles and he says, "Well, I see you've got all C's here." And Charles sort of offhandedly says, "Well, yeah, I guess I'm just average." And Barry really lit into him. And he said, "Look, man, you cannot be average and play this music. Your heroes, Charlie Parker, Bud Powell, Dizzy Gillespie, Thelonious Monk, these are not average men. You got to get it together." And Charles says that talk really changed his life. He shaped up, started reading, made the honor roll. We should remember that the lessons of people like Barry Harris and teachers, music teachers, sometimes go way beyond music.
All the skills that you learn in jazz, you could run a Fortune 500 company, because you have to deal with so many personalities, and you have to accept the independent mind and thinking and openness of other people to be able to play. And in order to play with another person, perform with another person, you have to evaluate and negotiate all the time. Sometimes when I'm playing with a drummer, they're not going to play in my time, so they just kind of play. They're the boss. So I can fight against that, and if I fight against that, the music doesn't sound good. But if I agree, I have to let go of my ego and agree. And that negotiation happens in the first 3 minutes of the gig. And so we have to, at some point, humble ourselves to the music. So if the drummer is feeling better than me, I go with them. But generally, if I'm making it feel better than them, they go with me. And so that's a negotiation that you have to do in real time. I've been in meetings with people where people have their way they think about it. And I said, well, yeah, let me hear your perspective. And sometimes they win me over. But sometimes I'm able to sway them with what I'm thinking because I listen to them. And being a bass player, you're in the middle of everything. So you have to listen. Listening is the key to leadership, because it doesn't have to be your idea, it just has to be a good idea.
And for more on Detroit Jazz City, just head to onedetroitpbs.org and make sure you catch the premiere on September 18th. Well, that is going to do it for us. Coming up next week, it's a One Detroit in-depth special on education. How is school going this year for your kids so far? Well, we're going to take a look at how Michigan schools compare with what's going on across the nation, plus technology challenges and special education concerns. We'll also hear from our local student reporters from the PBS NewsHour Student Reporting Lab. And the trends in higher education. How has COVID changed college for good? It is all coming up next week on One Detroit. Hope you join me then. Have a great weekend. Take care.
You can find more at onedetroitpbs.org or subscribe to our social media channels and sign up for our One Detroit newsletter.
From Delta Faucets to Behr Paint, Masco Corporation is proud to deliver products that enhance the way consumers all over the world experience and enjoy their living spaces. Masco, serving Michigan communities since 1929.
Support for this program provided by the Cynthia and Etzel Ford Fund for Journalism at Detroit Public TV, the Kresge Foundation, Community Foundation for Southeast Michigan.
The DTE Foundation is a proud sponsor of Detroit Public TV, among the state's largest foundations committed to Michigan-focused giving. We support organizations that are doing exceptional work in our state. Visit dtefoundation.com to learn more.
Business Leaders for Michigan, dedicated to making Michigan a top 10 state for jobs, personal income, and a healthy economy. Nissan Foundation, Ally, and viewers like you.